My name is Becky McCray. I am from the town of Hopeton, Oklahoma, population 30 people. And 8 miles away from us, and by 8 miles I don't mean like there's a farm here and some people there and a little bitty burrow in between. I mean there's nothing for 8 miles, and then there's the town of about 5,000. And in that town, my husband and I run a retail liquor store. And then if you go 8 miles south the other direction, we have a small cattle ranch. Now when I say I'm from Oklahoma and we have a cattle ranch, people picture miles. No, it's like maybe hobby size, I guess you would say. But we're here today. We've known and loved Forest County for years. So we've been very excited to have the opportunity to come to meet you, to get to see some of the things we've known about for years, and to have the opportunity to learn what is unique and fascinating about this area of Northwest Pennsylvania. And we are glad to be here with you. And with that, I want to tell you the story of Abby. This is a group of young people in Miller, South Dakota, who met with each other around the familiar refrain of "there's nothing to do here." Oh, have you heard this? You know these? You might have said it. Your kids said it. Might have said it. It's true. These kids, instead of just talking about it, decided they would try to do some things that would make some more things to do in their community. And one of the ideas that the kids came up with themselves was, we need a movie theater, a real indoor movie theater. They had a drive-in, but you know, they're in South Dakota. It's a little cool in the winter. They can't go to the drive-thru. They want movies in the winter as well. Abby there, who is holding the mic, went to a meeting in the community and shared her idea that she was taking the lead on this idea of coming up with a movie theater. And one of the adults at the meeting turned to Abby and said, "That idea is too big. It's going to fail. You should not try it." Now, I'd like you to be shocked, but I don't suppose you are. At most, you're probably sad because it's happened to you too, hasn't it? People have told you before that your ideas were too big and you shouldn't try them. Now, let me ask this question. Do you suppose that adult was afraid she would succeed and they hated her and so they were trying to stop her? No. They cared about her. They wanted to protect her from what it would feel like if she did fail. And so rather than even let her try, they tried to stop her in advance. Now we'd like to think that that's shocking, but we know. We know that this happens. We've seen it happen in our own communities. Each one of us holds a different role in the communities. It's a very diverse group. We all hold different roles. We come from different areas. We've crossed county lines to be here tonight. But we're all doing the same thing. We're fighting for the future of our communities. We want our communities to be a prosperous place, the kind of place where our own kids, our grandkids, or maybe our nephews will have a place that they can grow, that they can live, and that they can enjoy. That's the shared goal that all of us have. But we've all faced a bit of drag on our efforts. It feels like it's really hard to get anything done. We're pulling a heavy weight with us. We go to meeting after meeting after meeting where we talk the idea to death. It's our own people. It's like that adult who spoke to Abby that way. We're protecting ourselves by slowing things down. We end up with a set of intertwined problems that may seem familiar. There's too much to do. We don't have enough volunteers. Our volunteers are getting burned out. They've been around for too long. It's hard to get people to participate. It's hard to get any momentum going. Efforts kind of seem to fizzle out. Does this sound familiar? Is it possible that this is a description of your community? Maybe. It's sometimes how we feel. And none of us started out with that as our goal. There's not a single person here who gets up in the morning excited. I'm so excited to go deal with the committee of negativity today. I really want to have to try to really prove everything to the last degree before we can ever act on it. That's not you in the morning. No, that's not me in the morning either. None of us started with that. We had ideas for our community, but we faced so much pressure not to fail. And we have faced that pressure, and then we turn around and put it on others accidentally. We say to people, don't try that. That'll probably not work. You better not do it. Especially in a small town where we feel like everyone is watching. And so we end up searching for proof. We want to know for sure. We want to hear another example from a community. We want somebody that'll run the numbers. We need a feasibility study, and I'd like to have a committee with me because I am not going down alone. I'm taking you with me. And the crazy thing about that is things are not as risky as we think. We're terrible judges of failure. Author Margie Worrell says that using the latest brain imaging techniques, they have looked inside our heads and found that we misjudge the risk of failure 4 important ways. Number 1, we overestimate the likelihood that we will fail. And then number 2, we tend to vastly exaggerate the consequences if we would fail at something. And then we underestimate our own ability to deal with anything that happens. And then 4th, and I'm not telling you this, but it is a secret about small towns, we forget to take the risk of inaction into our calculations. We ignore it. Now, that risk, because we have this hugely heightened sense of risk, our brains are wired like this. It was to protect us because when the risk was a bear, it was okay to overestimate the risk of failure because that saved us. But when the risk is, well, maybe we won't have movies in the winter. We don't have movies now. We didn't really risk a lot. So that risk still makes us to tell people no. That's why they told Abby no. That's why other people tell us no. And it makes us hold ourselves back. We end up saying to ourselves, have you ever done that? Have you ever said, maybe I shouldn't try that? That might not work. I don't really want to look like an idiot in front of everybody again. Well, it's again in my case. Maybe you've never looked like an idiot in front of everyone. But that years and years of pressure end up making us into the people who say no. And that we tell that to other people. And then after, the negative people really feel like they're helping. They tell us that to slow us down so that we don't risk failure. And I know this because they've written into me. I've been writing about small towns since 2006. And an actual person wrote into me by email and said, we need more people like me, he meant negative people, that was what we were talking about, who will slow down the decision people who are in a rush because they will maybe make a mistake, spend money, and look foolish. So we need to slow us down. That's where that drag comes from. And after decade upon decade, we've actually started building this into our organizations. So the committees and organizations that we work with have it now baked into them. Let's avoid failure. But we know our brains are overestimating those risks. And I've been there. I've been the one who's told that I needed to work my way up through the ranks. I was trying to do things too quickly. I've had people dismantle things that I started because, that's just too risky to keep trying. I've been told I was too young. That was a long time ago. I've been told all these, but you have your own list of crazy things like that people have told you to keep you from doing things, keep you from even trying. And we end up with that small town stereotype of too closed to new ideas. It's where we end up. It's that fourth risk. We think if we don't change, it'll all be fine. Maybe if we don't change. We don't have to change. We can choose to not change, right? Well, that is what the Greek philosopher Parmenides says, is that the world is static and change is an illusion. Therefore, we don't have to change. Well, I have a little news for you from the Oklahoma philosopher Will Rogers, who says that even if you are on the right track, if you're just going to sit there, you're going to get run over. We're overlooking that risk of change. The blind spot that we're missing is that we don't have the option to not change. We miss that fourth risk that author Margie Worrell talked about, the risk of inaction. We don't have to compare how things are right now versus how would it be if we changed, because it's not going to stay like this, is it? We have to compare how will it be if we change versus what will happen if we don't take action. And that is the risk that we really face, because the future is coming at us very quickly, very quickly. Elon Musk says in 20 years they won't even put steering wheels in cars. What? IBM says that in just 5 years, buying local will beat buying online. And this year, right now, it already happened. They 3D printed a house in Austin, Texas for $10,000 worth of materials. Future is coming at us very quickly. And if we choose to not take action, the future will move around us. Oops, that's the wrong one. All right, there we go. What's happening is we are living through the most epic shift in power in a long time. Power is shifting away from formal organizations and governments and into the hands of individuals. It's a really strange time if you think about how much power has shifted into the hands of individuals. And to understand it, let's look back at the way this happened the last time we had such a big power shift. In the 1850s, you remember the 1850s. You remember your typewriter fondly, don't you? We had the typewriter, the telegraph, postage stamps so we could send regular mail as regular people. It was so easy. This really changed communication. You could send a message and people could get it the same day. You could write something and make 5 copies and send it to 5 people. How amazing was communication technology? And so we came up with new ways to work together. So in that same time period, the 1860s, the 1870s, we see the first use of the organizational chart in business. Ooh. And we also got that wonderful tool, Robert's Rules of Order, so we could manage how organizations work. Oh, are you the parliamentarian in the room? Finger pointing begins. Okay. Well, look at the...
He's always telling me, no, that's not how it works.
That's not how it works. You can't do it that way. So now look at the new tools. Look at the communications tools we have in our hands. We got email, and we got text messaging, we got instant messaging, and then it all got really small, and we carry it around with us everywhere all the time. And it's apparent that we're going to need some new ways to work together, aren't we? And so we're coming up with new ways to work together, but it just doesn't fit the old organizational chart anymore. Robert's Rules is just not cutting it anymore. How many of you are within arm's reach right now of your supercomputer, super communications device? Oh, yeah, applaud for it. If you Is it within reach? Do you have it? Anybody within arm's reach of your Smith Corona portable typewriter? Smack. Oh, we're talking smack. Okay. So we do need some new ways to work together. And now here's a real world example. Can you actually accomplish things without using a formal organization? This is the playground equipment in my hometown, the big town of Alva, Oklahoma, the 5,000 person town. Here's the playground equipment. This is the boat, and this is the lighthouse. This is a lighthouse in Oklahoma. I don't know why we have a boat in I guess it's aspirational, like we like the idea. We figure kids won't see it any other way, so we put it on the playground. That stuff's been there since my mom was a kid, and probably before that. A group of moms got together and said, you know what, this equipment, cute as it is not safe. Oh, you've already spotted that. You're like making a list of violations from here. There was a list of violations, and it was extensive. They needed a lot of work. And so these moms decided they would do something about it. And they organized mostly on Facebook and by text message. And they just decided to raise the money. They found out what kind of equipment they should get, what would actually stand up to the weather, what would work in Oklahoma, how much is it going to cost, and how can we work with the city government that's kind of surprised to find out that maybe this is not the best equipment in the world. But I can tell you that after a couple of years, yeah, look, they actually put in some new safe equipment that's tough enough to hold up my little tiny nephews. So it does work, but I want to point out it was the kind of thing that the city couldn't have done alone. Government cannot do all the things that once it could. There's just too much pressure on local governments at all levels. We have to have the power in the hands of people to make things happen. Now, this shift of power from government, from formal organizations, from foundations, and into the hands of individuals is best viewed as an event that cannot be undone. Clay Shirky wrote the book, Here Comes Everybody, about this very shift in power, and he wrote it 10 years ago. This is not news, folks. It's already here. We're fully into this change. And he said that revolution does not happen when we adopt the new tools. Revolution happens when we adopt new behaviors. So we'll have to change the way we behave in some ways. You've adopted the new tools. I know you have them. You've already established that it's all within arm's reach. Now we need to adopt some new behaviors. And so this chart, you may want to shoot a photo of that with your phone because you will hear about these behaviors again and again. The old way, you will recognize it is on the left. It is formal organizations where you are in control, baby. You are in control of the entire project. There are just a few people, and they will be doing the deciding for everyone. Right? Okay. They're going to be holding a vote, like we like votes in the old way, because then we can say, we took a vote, so you have to put up with it now, because this was voted on. Like that means something. And they do that in isolation in a closed room. They're not connected to anyone else. And they like big projects because, man, it's a lot of work to get anything done. We better do big stuff in order to make it worth our while. But if you do it big, what happens when you fail? The bigger they are, the harder they fall. The new way, this is what we need. We need to understand the new behaviors. We have the tools. We can do this now. What are the new behaviors that we get? We get to be informal. Good news. Informal. In fact, chaotic. I am all for the chaotic now. Sounds a little scary, but that's where the good stuff happens. It's just a crowd of people, not necessarily organized in any way, but lots of us. And we're going to just kind of get together, and we're not going to vote on it. We're going to try it. We're going to test it and see if it works. And then we do this in connection. We're able to text and message and stay in contact with everyone. We're open. We're listening to other ideas. We're finding out what other people are trying, and we're trying too. And then because we're all connected, but it's all just a crowd and sort of chaotic, we have to start small, which turns out to be a good thing, because if it fails, it was small. And if it succeeds, we learn from it and we can build from there. So failure is valuable feedback to us of what actually works. Now, our formal programs, not exactly up to speed for this, are they? We need another strategic plan. We're going to need to hold a survey. We're going to need to get it in a binder, and we got to get it on the shelf, right? We got to have it with the rest of our plans that we're not using. Well, we need some tools that are going to help us that will work inside of these formal organizations. We need that new method of behavior. We've seen the behaviors. We need that new method. We don't have like a Robert's Rules now. How are we going to make things actually work? So that's your goal for today, is to find that method of reducing the risk of failure, making big mistakes, so that while we're working together more easily using the tools we already have in our hands. We have the tools, we need the method. So I've been thinking a lot about this. You've been writing to me. I've listened to a lot of people. We surveyed 478 individuals with the Survey of Rural Challenges in 2 rounds of surveys. We've paid attention to a lot of what rural people are telling us from real small towns. We've done a lot of reading, a lot of research around the question of crowdsourcing, innovation, what works in small towns right now. How do you actually overcome the resistance to change? Sounds like a good question, doesn't it? How do you connect online? We've done a lot of research on this, and so this is the method. This is the method, the idea-friendly method. Following these 3 relatively simple sounding pieces, you can make your community more open to new ideas. You're going to gather your crowd using a big idea. Then you're going to build connections between those people to turn them into a powerful network. And then you and that crowd are going, hey, that's a great idea, thank you. And then you and the crowd are going to accomplish that big goal by taking small steps together. It sounds really simple, doesn't it? But it's just some rural wisdom that I've pulled together from folks like you. So we need to gather our crowd. We've got to pull people together. We need a big idea that people are interested in. So what's the old way to gather our crowd around a big idea? Well, we're going to be assigning some committees. You could serve on the committee. We're going to put you on the committee. You're not on enough committees. You were here, so you're going on the committee, right? That's how that goes. And then also those people that weren't here, they're definitely going on the committee.
They're chairman.
And exactly how that works. You did not show up. You are the chairman. So what's the new way? Let's kill the committees. Now, not the people, the committees. All right, so we want to kill off the committees. State and Sublimity Chamber of Commerce in Oregon said, we don't need committees. We'll just get people together when we need them. Elena Turpin, who works there, told me we spend a lot more time talking about how we make a difference in the community. And she said, when you do it this way, your chamber becomes a cause people can get behind and not just another volunteer job they have to do. And that's the difference. That's the difference. So the other part of this new way is to think about how we could do that online. And this is your friend Kirsten from Belfouche, Deb. Belfouche, South Dakota. Woman decided that she wanted to find out who she could, this old school, she'd have said we should have a committee around the arts, like we should form an arts council or something. And instead she just posts on Facebook and says, who are the artisans, the upcyclers, the bakers, the junkers, the people who do cool artistic stuff? Who should I know? Who do you know that we can connect with? The great thing is, she's not the Chamber of Commerce, she's a real estate agent. She just cares about her community. And that's the future of pulling people together, is not formal, it's informal, chaotic. Gather your crowd. Because nothing draws together a crowd of people like a crowd of people. So as you gather people online or you gather them in person, they gather more people to them. People like to go where there are already people. There are always more people who will join in than there are people who will start it up. So if you have the bravery to put a big idea out there, people will come to you. Because they've been beaten down by the same people telling them no for years, the same as you have. They've had the committee of negativity chewing on them just as long as you have. But if you'll start something, they'll come to you because they're so excited that you're doing something positive. And remember this. We talked about this at Rural X Conference, and a woman said, but there's those people who are they won't help me with this. They're going to resist it. I said, they weren't going to help you anyway. They were never going to help you. Even if we put them on the committee, they weren't going to help. You cannot lose the people who were never yours. We say in Oklahoma, we say, the dog keeps barking, but the train keeps moving on. Y'all don't say that? You can say that now. You can borrow that. I borrowed it from somebody else, so. Okay, you're just looking to collect those people who are excited and want to take action. Those are the people you're looking for. Not people you can assign to a committee, but a crowd you can gather together. We want the excited people because they'll draw other excited people. Okay, clean your own sidewalk day. I was in Pullman, Washington, big college town, where it rains, and they're on a mountain. They're in mountains, and so, it rains, and the water comes down the mountain, down the hill, and up onto the sidewalk. And what is it bringing with it? Leaves, trash, dirt, the usual stuff. So they've said for years that they have a dirty sidewalk problem. They'd like to be, a clean, welcoming, friendly town. So they did a cleanup project once. Did you know it rained again? They're in Washington State. It rains a lot. So they actually had me come. I did a walkthrough, and they all go, oh, look how bad the sidewalks look. And I go, yeah, they do look a little rough. I get it. And they said, oh my gosh, we should really do a cleanup project. Okay, that's great. Who wants to lead it? And that was the answer from them as well. Nobody wanted to lead it. I said, okay, so it's obviously not a priority. And one guy, was probably you at this meeting, who went, the Chamber of Commerce did it last time. I think the Chamber should do it again. There's the Chamber.
There you go.
That sounds like you. Poor guy, we're picking on you. You're right here. I'd pick on these people, but they didn't, they laughed. They said, we're not going to stay for that. So they were like, the Chamber should do it. Have you ever had people do that to you, pin the job on you from across the room, like javelin across the room? Oh no, another job that I don't want and won't do. I said, no, there are no javelin throwing of tasks across the room here. Either you'll do it or you won't. If you don't care enough about it, then you won't do it. Rather than have them make a half-hearted attempt at a cleanup day, just let it go. And they were a little uncomfortable with that, but a business owner from across the room said quietly, her name was Willow actually, and she said, I will clean my own sidewalk. I said, that is where it starts. I said, do it, take a picture, put it on Instagram, and hashtag it, clean your own sidewalk day. And then tag 2 people. Now that's not javelin throwing, that's gathering your crowd. And that's the difference. And that's how it will actually get started. See, the consensus doesn't happen. If we had taken a vote, they'd have all voted, yes, we need a cleanup project. Would have been the most popular thing in the room. How many people were actually going to do it? 1. Willow. Willow was going to do hers. But by Willow starting hers, the consensus emerges from who will take action. So instead of consensus through voting, consensus through who will actually take action. That's where consensus comes from. And let me tell you this, I am a business owner. I have a sidewalk in front of my business. And if you are holding the community meeting to talk about what a dirty town we are and how we all need to clean up, yeah, that is me. It is a liquor store. I'm not kidding. And it is Woodford, baby. That is Woodford, Knob Creek. There's, all right, Wild Turkey on the shelf below. Yes, I can name the bottles from here, even if you can't. Now, if you can, you have to explain. I run the liquor store. I have a reason. So, if you're having a community meeting to talk about, man, we really need to clean sidewalks, I'm not going. I am not going to another community meeting to talk about we need to clean up. But if you're going to do a cleanup day on Saturday, I might go. I've done like 2 of those in my entire life, give up my Saturday to go clean somebody else's sidewalks. But if you tag me on Instagram and it's clean your own sidewalk day, okay. Okay, I'll get my broom. I will clean my sidewalk now. That's how you get me. I am not the only one like that. So the action, taking the action, draws more people than talking about it. Radical concept. Action draws more people than talk. So that's gather your crowd. Let's talk about building connections. We've gathered a crowd together. We want to turn them into a powerful network, so we're going to need to build connections between them. Now, how do we build connections? Well, let's take another real-world example. This is from Jessica. She's in Idaho, kind of in the northern, not quite panhandle of Idaho. And she says she works in economic development. She works for an economic development council, and she really wants a microbrewery in her town. Because there's like a microbrewery, she says, in everybody else's town. So she wants one in her town. And the way she has worked on it so far is she's gone around to people and said, do you like beer? You should start a microbrewery. Now this hasn't worked yet. They don't have a microbrewery yet. Now what would be the old school economic development plan for getting a microbrewery? Like we would have like an insider deal. Hey, relocate to town. All right, we'll treat you right. Okay, recruit a little industry. We'll send that up through the board. We'll see some approvals. It's going to take a year to get it on the strategic plan. There has to be a feasibility study. That's the old school way. You know what the new way is to get a microbrewery? Why don't you just start a club of people that brew at home? Let's just get them all in one room. We're going to start it online so they can all talk to each other and figure things out, and then we're going to get them in the same place. And do you know what's going to happen if they meet and they drink beer and they talk for a while? Okay, after that part, then they're going to start a microbrewery. Somebody's going to start a brewery. That's how all breweries start, is that somebody that's a home brewer steps up and starts a microbrewery. But how more successful would they be if we could get them just a little group of other guys that are real excited about brewing beer? They'd have better resources. They'd be connected to each other. They could talk about ideas, share recipes, talk about where they get supplies, all those questions that they're not sure about, they could all rely on each other to make it happen. That's how you get a microbrewery. Now, I want to emphasize that when I said they were meeting, it did not mean Robert's Rules of Order. Did not mean there would be a treasurer's report and that we will talk about old business. I said get together and have a beer, and then that's how we're going to get a microbrewery. And it applies for more than microbreweries, but that's the starting point for almost anything, is how could we have a gathering? How could we get together the people who care about this so they can connect to each other? And we can do this in a small town in a way that nobody can do it in the big city. We can do the hybrid of online and offline. We can get people to connect with each other online. We can have a real active Facebook group, and then we can get together in person. It's so cool. Do you know how hard that is to do in a big city? I'm really excited that we get to do that in small towns, because community does happen when people talk to each other. We can get them to talk online, we can get them to talk in person. And that builds our social capital, builds stronger connections, and makes a more prosperous community. It's what we asked for in the prayer at the beginning of this session. You want to connect people to resources? We'll talk a lot about that. That's an SBDC thing also. We'll throw that question to you as well. And when you do that, that is the rural jobs creation strategies. When you apply building connections to entrepreneurship, that's the rural jobs creation strategies. Deb's going to talk about that with some specific examples. And the last part of Idea Friendly is take small steps. We did build connections, and now we're going to take small steps. We've got a crowd. We turned them into a network. Let's go do the thing. So that's take small steps. As small as possible. The old way for take small steps was, well, we could do another plan. We're going to continue to plan. We're going to have another meeting. We're going to talk about it some more. We're going to do another feasibility study. And then eventually we will take action. So the small steps all happen before anything is actually done. The new way is, let's just test it right now. Let's just figure out the world's tiniest way to make it happen immediately. What could we do immediately to see if this will work? And that's the new way. Failure turns into that free, high-quality research on what does and does not work. Now, it ends up that judging ideas then is actually a distraction. You don't need to look at each idea and go, is this really a good idea? No, you go, what do you need to test that idea? It doesn't matter whether I think it's good or not. I'm just going to figure out what you need to test it. That's how we'll find out if it's a good idea. Because we can move so much more quickly that way. We take off the brakes. We let go of that giant chain we've been dragging around with us all this time. And our small steps build up to more successes, to bigger trials, to larger projects. But we start small and we keep each step small along the way. And when you apply that to entrepreneurship, that's the innovative rural business models. We're going to have Deb talk about the innovative rural business models and examples we've seen right here as we've toured around this area. Now, I want to point out that the good solutions are strikingly smaller than the problem to be solved. That's from Chip and Dan Heath from the book Switch. They talk about when you have a big nest of intertwined problems, the solution is always strikingly smaller. And so if you're thinking, well, this taking small steps, it's too small. No, it's beautiful. We need to give small but meaningful participation to everyone. Everyone needs to have a chance to do something as a part of this project. Now, it falls into this power rule here. This is a graph of everybody who cares about your big idea. You all have an idea for this community that you're in, and this is the graph of who cares about it. Now, you're over here, because this is the one you really care about. So you are, like you're way up here. You may be off the chart excited about your thing. Who else is as excited as you are? A few people. Like, it goes down from you, like, really quickly, right? And then there's a few other people, and then there's this. This cutoff line, that's the end of the committee. That's the end of the official committee, because we can't have all those other people. They're not excited enough to do anything. The new way says, to heck with the dividing line, we want all these people to help spread the word, to get the excitement going, to do some small but meaningful step and be part of the same project. We can find a way for all these people to do something. Because in the old way, we just said, cut them off and throw them away. And new way, our new plan, we're going to use these folks. We're going to make them an important part of our project. And here's the example. I get to pick on Deb. I love Deb. Deb, I love you. But I love to tell this story, which was when Deb was a Chamber of Commerce director, I was teaching her this whole new idea-friendly concept. And I said, take small steps. And she calls me real excited one day. I've got to take small steps story. They'd had a design group come in and give them 62 things that they could do to make their town a better place. And one of them was put lights in the trees downtown. And Deb said, I called the city manager, and the city manager said he'd tell the crews, and they'd put up lights. Take small steps, right? She's like, that's one small thing. I'm like, okay. Actually, I think I said, no. Where's the small but meaningful participation for everyone? How could we have everybody help hang lights in trees downtown? Like, that's going to be a disaster, right? That's my kind of disaster. That's going to be chaos, and I'm going to love it. No two trees will match. But we'll all, most of the trees are going to get decorated. We're just going to announce it on Facebook and say, hey, come pick a tree and decorate it. The city crew guys will be there with the bucket truck on Thursday if you want to have them help you hang lights higher. And we're just going to put it out there and see what happens. And then the word's going to start spreading online, and we're going to start talking about how we want to light up the whole town. And as people start talking about it, then somebody's going to go, well, I'll decorate my building. I'll decorate my business windows. I'll decorate my house. I'll decorate my apartment window. Like, could you drag a lamp into your front window for one night to light up the town? You'll do it. You're on board. Yeah. All right. People are going to talk online. They're going to go, we should have a walk around. The town looks great. I want to all walk around on Thursday together. Let's do it. See, that's the night I want you to drag the lamp into the window is on Thursday. Somebody's going to go, we should have singers. I sing. I'll get some other people who sing. They're going to organize this online. There'll be singers. Someone else will say, I sense a business opportunity. I'm selling hot chocolate. Now, don't tell the health department I'm selling hot chocolate, but I'm going to be doing it out of the trunk of the car. Don't tell anybody. We'll just do it. And it'll kind of self-organize, and it'll be chaos. And the lights will be done, but everybody had a part to play in lighting up the town. Small but meaningful. Even if all you did was brag about it online, then I think you're on board enough. You were part of that long tail. We didn't cut anybody off. We said, however you want to be part of it, that's awesome. We want everybody to be part of it. That takes small steps. So now you've got it, right, Deb?
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. All right, so now I had a gal that emailed me and said, we are going to promote our community. And there's this group of friends of mine who are retailers, and then there's these other people in town, you know, those other people. And they want to promote the town differently for tourism than we do. And our idea is like home and family and, you know, tradition, which is all. I said, okay, so take a picture of that and put it on Facebook or Instagram and see who actually replies to it or likes it or shares it, and just see how it goes. And she said, that is a great idea. I'm going to get with my retailer friends and we'll talk about it. But they're real busy because it's the holidays. So I'm going to wait a month, and then we're going to hold a meeting of the retailers. And we're going to talk about your idea to take a photo and post it online. I said, no, that's not going to work either. I said, you're going to need to post about it right now. Like I'm on her email, badgering her, right now. Like email me back in a minute and tell me you've done it, which she did do. But why would she fall back to, I'm going to wait a month and hold a meeting? Why would she do that? It's the old way. It feels so familiar. We know how to hold a meeting. It's so easy. It's hard to actually make a post and see what people think of it. Like they may not like it. Like what will happen if not anybody likes my post? Oh my gosh. Well, that's a really small way to fail rather than buying a $10,000 ad in the tourism publication to find out that the idea nobody liked. Let's find out when it's really small instead. Now, there's that old way feels familiar. Okay, we're moving from creating committees to just creating the context, the kind of place where people can be part of it. We are going from organizations well managed to networks well led. And this is the organizational chart for today. Forget that straight lines and who's in charge. We're just going to organize whoever, whenever, however. And it's going to be different all the time. And we just kind of get together what we need and when we need it. And the result is we end up with that more prosperous town because we've built connections, we've shared social capital, we've made things better. Open networks, when we connect with people who grew up differently, who came from a different culture, who came out of a different town, maybe they moved into town, maybe they've been gone for a while and come back, maybe they live across the county, like across that dreaded Hemlock line in between the Iron Curtain there. You know, they probably have different ideas, and that's where innovation comes from. The old way, I mean, it used to feel really safe. It was much safer if we would just put the brakes on things. Because, you know, maybe we could not change. We're going to not change, it's going to be fine. But really, what happens, what we face, is the risk of being run over by change if we're not doing anything. So, we have to ask this question that comes from author Margie Worrell, who said, the question we need to ask is, how will inaction cost us 1 year from now if we don't act? This is the community of Winoka, Oklahoma. They're not very far from me. These are the guys that have the sand dunes, my sand dune stories. And they actually received a grant to redo their downtown streetscape. New lights, new sidewalks, the whole thing. Beautiful thing. But they received 3 plans from the architect, who just kind of like dropped them on the council table and said, okay, pick one. You know, here's the presentation. They showed them what they would look like. This is a town of 993 people with 8 council members, all volunteers. Not a single urban planner on the council. None of them a trained engineer. How are they supposed to pick? Well, they didn't. They spent like 3 years not picking one of these alternatives. Now, you hang your head, but it's a true story, and you know you've seen this kind of thing happen. Repeatedly. So what is the risk of inaction? What is the cost as we don't do anything? Here's the grant total dollars. We're not doing anything. What's happening to our purchasing power? What's happening to the cost of materials? Yeah, so there is a risk to not acting. See, that's an actual story you can tell people. There's a risk of not acting. So here's what you could actually do. We could do a mock-up. We could go into City Hall. We could get the plans. We could borrow them. We could talk the city, there's a city clerk who will let us borrow a set of plans while nobody's looking. And we can go out with a roll, I'm not kidding, a roll of duct tape. And we can get out on the sidewalk and we go, it says right here there should be a ramp. And we're going to get the duct tape and we're going to go, whoop, and we're going to mark it out on the ground and we're going to label it, ramp. And then we're going to go right here. It says there should be a bump out from the curb. We're going to draw that. And it says these should be bricks. We're going to go, I know where there's a pile of bricks. And we're going to send you, because you're the right kind of guy. You'll go pick up the bricks out of the guy's backyard while he's out of town, right? You got it. You're the man. And then we're going to set up bricks right there, because it said it should be brick. And it says right here there should be plants. He's going to get the plants. We're going to drag some plants out there and put them in the middle of the street where it said there should be plants in the planter. We're going to get it all set up. And it said, what else does it say? We need a railing. Can you come up with a railing? Some chairs. He's the man. Zimmerman's got it. That's like, we got it covered. So we set it up like it is on the plans. And then we take the city council members, much to their surprise, and we walk around the plan. And there it is, and we can go, this doesn't make any sense. Who put these plants here? Like, we're going to move that because it's the wrong thing. But we can't tell on paper. None of us are that expert. But if we draw it out actually in the real world, we can see how it will work. But we don't have to stop there. We're small but meaningful for everyone. Let's throw a party. Let's have a bunch of pop-up businesses. Let's get everybody downtown. Let's have some performances. Let's get some food. We need a pop-up restaurant. We want some scones, Julia. We need scones. So we got to have a party down there so that we get everybody in town downtown at that time. And now we can really see how this plan is going to work or not work for our town. Because that architect visited our town for how long? Like a day. They spent a day in our town and they think they know it. And they drew a plan that we're going to live with for decades. But if we draw it out with our duct tape and those bricks you brought me and the whole thing, then we can see how it'll work. And then next week we can try plan number 2, and then the next week we can try plan number 3. And then will we be ready to make a decision? A lot sooner. A lot sooner. Because we'll know. We'll be able to feel it. So that's kind of a tricky story there, but it's real world. But we have to do those kind of tests because every single town is different. Every single town is different. Oh, you know that place. That's why I put that there. I was waiting to see who's been to the pub. Now, Iowa State University studied actually 99 different towns, and they followed them for 20 years. They did 3 rounds of studies because they're Iowa State, and there's apparently nothing to do in Iowa except run a long study, which they did. And they said, now, which towns have actually succeeded over this 20-year period? And in that time frame, some towns had lost a manufacturer or lost a plant. Others had gained a new business. Some of them had had a population boom. Others had lost a bunch of population. Somebody lost a school. There were natural disasters happened to a few. But, in 99 towns over 20 years, lots of different things happened. They looked at this very carefully and they came to the conclusion that the towns that thrived the best, no matter what the world threw at them, were open to new ideas. Because no matter what is thrown at you, if you're open to new ideas, if you're constantly doing little trials and tests, you're much more likely to survive anything that happens. Anything that happens. So, all ideas are good. Any idea, even if it's to take the carts out of the cart area and turn that into a cafe, it's a good enough idea to test. Let's find out if it works. It might work. We'll find out. Organizations do absolutely still have a role, but we are going to get all idea friendly up in the middle of your organizations, people. We're going to be trying all kinds of tests and trials. And when you say, well, let's just wait and we'll talk about it next month, you're going to say, let's run a test so we'll have something to talk about next month. So you're going to change the way the ideas work. And so you're going to have a new question that you ask everybody that tells you their crazy idea. So when you come to me with your crazy idea, my new question is going to be, what do you need to test that? What do you need to test it? I'm happy for you to test it. We'll hook you up. Because you are the kind of people in this room, because you are here, you are the right people. You are the ones. And you know where to get a lot of resources. You have a lot of connections. You know the right people to call and ask. And to make those connections so people can get the help they need to just try it out. Just let them try it out. Because experts pick the wrong stuff too. James Surowiecki, author of The Wisdom of Crowds, actually ran a long study on this and figured out experts pick the wrong thing far more often than just people. So don't even worry about the experts. I will say this, there's a little tiny town, they were doing a little crazy idea about a rock hunt, painting rocks, hiding them, go find them. And the city manager said, you know, if you had lined up 10 ideas and said, which one do you think will really fire up the community? He said, I don't know if this is the one I would have picked. I'm just going to tell you right now, the city manager would never have picked the rock hunt. But we don't have to line up 10 ideas and pick, do we? The new question is, what do you need to test that? If you want to paint rocks, great. What do we need to do to help you to run a test to see if you could paint rocks? They tested it by posting a Facebook page. In 7 days, they had 3,000 likes in a town of 2,000 people. You never know which one's going to take off. You have to let people try them all. So voting is gone. We're just going to test it out. You are the venture capitalists of new ideas. You get to know about everything and invest only in the ones that seem to be working the best. The time has passed when a few influential people could gather in a room to decide what your city will be. Instead, the future of your town will be determined by the actions taken every day by all the people in your town based on what they believe about the future of your town and their own role in it. Carol Coletta, Kauffman Foundation. We're going to do this with a lot less risk. That risk that we are so worried about, our brains overestimate all that risk. We'll take a lot less risk because we're doing things so much smaller because we're going to do it with the idea-friendly method. The results speak for themselves. We end up with results so much more quickly. We spread economic opportunity to a lot more people in our community. And that big mess of intertwined problems that we all remember and are all sick and tired of dealing with, the solution is strikingly smaller than that big problem. It's to take small steps, to try things out. So I'm going to ask you to join the idea-friendly revolution. You're already here. You already have big ideas and little steps you can take. You can gather your crowd, put your big idea out there. What I really want is for you to start acting your way into a new way of believing. When you start doing it, you'll change the way you believe. You've already started. You've got a lot of ideas represented in this room. We've heard the people in your communities. They actually have. You get past that initial gritching stage, people have a lot of ideas. They really do. And just by being here, by being a part of your community, you are changing history. This is the turning point where we change things from old way to new way. When they write the new history book, they're going to actually point to this meeting as a turning point in the history of this county and this region. That's kind of cool to think. And you were here. They're going to point to this as the turning point. So hopefully, when you invite me back the next time, you're going to greet me at the city limits the way you greet everyone, with welcome to an idea-friendly town. We're going to take a little break. Deb's going to give you a lot of concrete examples. But I know you're changing history. I know you're making your communities more idea-friendly. And I want to thank you for letting me be a very small part of it tonight.